Humanity, the Dark Beings. So, welcome lads, this is Kingdom Under Fire lore. Here we are addressing some lore standpoints that I, personally, find interesting when you think on it and interpret its meaning. So let's start with the apes of the world. Humanity. Average in just about every way, capable of doing just about anything. So, this is what sets humanity so far apart from all the other species in Kingdom Under Fire. They possess the most versatility. A human could become the greatest mage, or the most powerful of warriors. While orcs and elves and dwarves have a better starting point, they never seem to reach the full heights that humanity has reached. And here in this video we will be diving into why. So buckle on in, grab your nearest dark elf cougar mama, and suck on her memories while I divulge lore and theories intertwined. First off, let's dive into some history, right? When the world was young, elves, dwarves, and humanity existed. That was it. Humans being technologically and magically behind the other two races, but most definitely the most numerous of the three. Humans at the time were busy waging war on each other as tribes and eventually as cities, but we hear next to nothing of the elves and dwarves. All we get is that there was some political intrigue in elven society, especially in Iran, but that we will touch upon in another video. In regards to the Fire Elf Queen, Snowstone, well, as time progressed, the Dark Dimension spewed forth two particular creations. One was the Dark Elves, living in caves after they were driven back by the regular elves. These Dark Elves are beings of pure aggression, sharing the same magical talents of the regular elves, but they use their magic in a very different way. While their magic is still somewhat bound in nature, like Tree of Illusion for healing, they use magic in a much barbaric sense, as we see that they never use it in a defenseful manner. The Dark Elves will use magic as a foil to the elven way of magic. You see, the elves' way of life, they use magic defensively, like making impenetrable fogs or forests that have winding paths that never end. Meanwhile, the Dark Elves, they would instead make their fists cackle in lightning and punch people to death with said lightning. Then we have the orcs. The orcs are more or less the stereotypical orcs that, Tolkien made, which is that they're bastardized versions of the dwarves. They're strong and dwarf in stature like the dwarves, but completely technologically stupid and destroyers of any sort of architecture. Again, dwarves beat them back, just like the elves beat the Dark Elves. But the difference was that the dwarves could not in any formidable way cull the threat, as the orcs are the most numerous species in the entire world, which kind of serves as a foil and a nod to the dwarves, one of the most rare species we see. Like, really think about it. In Kingdom Under Fire, we see a lot of elven characters, but we see only 2 or 3 dwarven characters. Why is that? It's because they're the smallest race in the game. They don't state it, but it's very obvious that dwarves are much harder to come by than the elves. This is where humanity comes in. The dwarves and the elves are beating their foes back, but the Dark Elves and orcs are still prospering in the light dimension. They're still able to grow and grow. There is nothing that the dwarves or elves can do about these threats, as they are too defensive in their tactics, as there is too few of them remaining to enact any sort of damage to the Dark Legion. In Kingdom Under Fire War of Heroes, liches and orcs are living inside the dwarven home of Ravant's Mountain, and the dwarves are helpless to stop them from desecrating their dead. The elves with their magical barriers are absolutely helpless to the Dark Elves and orcs that spew into their forest after using magical artifacts to break those barriers. So, this is where humanity finally steps in. They step into these fights, pushing back the darkness, pushing back the Dark Legion, having set up kingdoms and vast armies of knights, mages, and cannons. The Dark Legion was not only broken, but damn near annihilated from this kind of assault. That is until politics kicked into the human kingdoms and the wars were grinded to a peace treaty, a more or less standstill. So, with humanity, how are they dark beings, you may ask, after all that I've just explained? Well, think about it. Look at their history. The elves and dwarves had always had alliances with each other. As far as we can see in Kingdom Under Fire history, they've never been at odds with each other. They've always aided one another. Never was there any bad blood or poor relations with these two people. In fact, a lot of times in Kingdom Under Fire, I'm kind of talking off script here, but I forgot to type it down. In Kingdom Under Fire, a lot of times in War of Heroes and Kingdom Under Fire Heroes, the dwarves and the elves say the exact same thing. Humanity, we will help you, but we will not if the other race doesn't join. In other words, the elves and dwarves are so intertwined that they refuse to help humanity unless both of them are in agreement to help humanity. This is very interesting. Humanity, oddly enough, isn't included in the Elven-Dwarven alliance, despite being there since the dawn of creation. Why is that? For what purpose, you might wonder? If humanity are beings of light, then why are they not allied to the elves and dwarves? Why are the elves and dwarves so hesitant to help humanity? This is further brought up in Kingdom Under Fire's Circle of Doom. Moonlight, the greatest mage that's ever existed, a human mage, talks to Kendall and Selene. Selene was the queen of the elves and Curian's lover. Moonlight talks to Kendall about how humans mutate in the dark dimension over time, and he tells Selene this as well, stating along the lines of, humans are not as pure as elves or vampires. Pure. That's an interesting thing to state. What makes humans not pure beings of light? They were made by Nibel, the god of light, just like the elves and dwarves. Vampires were made by Enkablosa. They are considered pure as well as orcs. So again, why is humanity considered not pure? This is where I start to dive into theories and try to explain to you all that humanity is not light creatures. They are more or less a mixture. You see, we know Nibel and Enkablosa have been at odds with each other ever since Nibel started to grow sad over seeing his creations die at the end of every Age of Light. This is where I theorize that humanity, while Nibel created them, are also imbued with essences of dark beings that were possibly killed by Nibel and his powerful rays of light. You see, Enkablosan creatures tend to die from sunlight, as the light equals Nibel's power. In the Dark Dimension, in Kingdom Under Fire's Circle of Doom, we actually see ape-like people. So, this is the question. Are these ape-like people related to humanity in some way? I certainly would think so. I think it would be great if they actually said that, because it would make so much sense that Bergia, the world, during the time of the previous Age of Darkness, was ruled by these ape people. And when Nibel's Age of Light came in and he wiped out all these apes, it would make sense that Nibel looked at these ape creatures and said, I can use you. And he took their bodies, brought them back to life, but mixed them with a lot of his energy, creating humanity. It would make a lot of sense, as it would explain why humans are keep referred to as apes by the Dark Elves. It would also make a lot of sense, as Nibel was looking for ways to make his creatures harder and tougher to fight back the Age of Darkness. Something that pisses off Enkablosa to no end, as he views it as irresponsible to resist the changing of ages. But by mixing the powers of two gods, he has created the most versatile and the most dangerous of species, capable of resisting the age of darkness and bringing about the age of light. Humanity. You see, this is something I find very, very interesting to talk about. Why is it that humanity is so good at fighting? Why is it humanity is so numerous as well as so magically gifted? Why is it humanity is never allied with the elves and dwarves? Well, it's because humans can commit atrocious acts. The elves and dwarves are absolutely disgusted with the terms slaughter or genocide, yet humans commit it with passion. Elves and dwarves may hate the Dark Legion, but never do they strike them down in pure bloodlust rage, but yet humans do that all the time. We see this especially with General Gerald, where he's just beating the crap out of a dead orc and he's just telling it, "I hope you gurgle and choke on your own blood." And the whole time, his half-elven waifu, Ellen, is just like, "Gerald, stop. Oh my god, what is wrong with you?" This is how repulsive it is to even someone who's half-elvish. This rage, this intense hatred for your enemy. The Dark Legion definitely doesn't exhibit this. Neither does the elves and dwarves. Humanity does, though, for some reason. Only interesting thing that the Dark Legion shares with humanity is their internal political squabbles and civil wars. Isn't that interesting? The elves and dwarves never wage war on one another, and never do they have their own quote-unquote sub-factions. They may have political issues like, oh, who should rule the throne, but never do they slaughter each other and start a whole war over it. In their entire Kingdom Under Fire history, it's never happened. But yet, humanity, it does. And with the Dark Legion, it happens all the time. They're almost in a perpetual state of constant political turmoil. Humanity, it's always a hit or miss. Never would you see anyone switch sides either. Like, never would a dwarf decide to help the Dark Legion. Never would an orc fight for the dwarves. But yet, in humanity, we see that happen all the time. We see humans switching sides, some trying to become vampires, others are trying to become liches, lords of arcane sorcery of the dark dimension. This, to me, is the most probable explanation. Nibel created a creation that was mostly his, but has enough evil in it to repel the evil that is Ankablosa. There are risks to this, like humans betraying him, which happens like damn near all the time, but the risks were outweighed by the benefits. If the people could truly resist the tides of evil and keep the Age of Light going, then they were worth every piece of his power that he put into them. Humans, while not as magically gifted as elves, they can still use holy magic. In fact, they could use holy magic offensively, like the Dark Elves. Humans are not as numerous as the orcs, but they can form a giant spear wall with plenty of artillery behind them. Humans are not as kind as the other races, but they perform their duty as a slate cleaner, wiping and genociding the tribes of Dark Elves and Orcs. The only issue with that is that humanity tends to more or less let that slight bit of darkness take over them, where they become overzealous in their function. Instead of wiping away and genociding the Dark Elves, Orcs, Kobolds, Demons, what have you, they get a little too zealous and start to go, yeah, we should kill Elves and Dwarves next, because they never help us. We should kill the Elves and Dwarves next because they don't believe in God the way we believe in God. It is an interesting concept, and I'm glad to have explained this theory, to get this out of my head and finally get this into a video for you all to have listened. And I'm glad that you all listened to the very end. If anything, comment down below what you guys would like. Comment down below what you guys think. I think it's very interesting. As I said, Kingdom Under Fire Circle of Doom was really interesting when they said a few sentences. Kingdom Under Fire Circle of Doom, by the way, had like the very least amount of storytelling. But the one or two sentences you could cherry pick there is just so interesting when you start to think of the grand scheme of the game. Like, humans are not as pure as elves. What does that mean? What do you mean we're not as pure as elves? And then you start to think about it. Dang, in Kingdom Under Fire Circle of Doom, I think they have a point, because in Kingdom Under Fire War of Heroes, the elves and dwarves refuse to ally with humanity despite humanity helping them until both parties are in agreement. Why do both parties need to agree to help humanity? Do they know something about humanity that humanity does not know about? And we see this a lot in Kingdom of Fire Crusaders, where humans, only a select few of them really seem to know what's going on. They don't understand what's the point of the Heart of Darkness. They don't understand what the point is of waging a war between gods. They don't understand this very interesting concepts. They don't understand like how the world functions at its heart. But the Dark Legion does. The Dark Elves and the Orcs, they understand very full well that the Heart of Darkness would bring about the Age of Darkness. The Elves and Dwarves understand full well that destroying the Ancient Heart would bring about the Age of Darkness. Humans don't, though. Why is that? Why are humans so confused in their role in this world? It's because they're kind of at a place to begin with. They're not supposed to really be around. They're supposed to be pure beings of light, but they're not. They're supposed to be either pure beings of darkness, but they're not. So in not being pure, they're stuck in this limbo where they're not sure their purpose, they're not sure what they're supposed to do. Something that, again, we don't see the elves and dwarves suffer from. We don't see the orcs suffer from that. We don't see the dark elves suffer for that. Never do we see a dark elf or an orc question their role in life, question their role in their god's plan. But humanity, we see that all the time. You may say, oh, Freezer 700, you're looking too much into this, you're overanalyzing. But in the Kingdom Under Fire universe, it is odd, don't you think, that elves and dwarves, dark elves and orcs, never have the same issues that humanity's having. Why is that? And in my theory, it's because that's why. Humanity is a confused species because they are not supposed to really exist the way that they exist. They're not supposed to be the way that they are. They're not pure in their form. They're not pure in their own structure. This gives them a lot of benefits, but now you have these very confused people that can have a wide range of things that can happen, like persecuting the elves and dwarves instead of wiping out the dark beings like they're supposed to be doing. It's very, very interesting. But besides that, this has been Freezer 700. I am out. I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.